Yeah, g'day. Continuing from yesterday. Thought I'd go through some things with a bit more detail than what I did on the intro yesterday before we really get into the job. So, one of the things that I want to do with the car, and I've half done, is I want to paint underneath it like anyone doing one of these jobs will want to do. This car, when I bought it, seriously, I could have grown potatoes in a bucket with the amount of dirt that I got out of her. She was used for towing horse floats at a farm down near Bega, apparently. And I've just never been able to get the thing clean underneath. When I was doing the work before, I had a go, but I was just doing it with car stands. Now I've got the hoist, I'm going, that's right, that's a job I've half done. I need to go back and do that. So, I'll rip the tail shaft out. I've already disconnected it, and I'll rip the diff out in a minute. Or I'll start ripping the diff out, and I'll do it completely next weekend when I get some time. For note, that bolt does not release oil out of the 9-inch diff, which is what I thought anyway. So the only way I know, if someone knows better, that'd be good. But the only way I know is to take the axles out, split the carrier and empty it that way, and then of course get a new gasket, which is what I'm going to do. Now, another thing about the car is the wheels. These are ROH 12 slots. The rear's 8-inch, the front a 7-inch, but there's a problem with them for the sedan anyway. You can see, and I'm assuming you can see, I'm using a GoPro today and I'm not an expert with it because I can't see the screen, but you can see that the wheel is too far out. The offset is wrong, in other words, and it's been damaging the tyre. Now these tyres are stuffed, they're old, they're had it, we've got to get new ones anyway. And this is something I've been thinking about for some time. What am I going to do? Like I said, I don't know if you can see that up there. I've got a set of American Racings, the 15x7s, but I really want to put 245 tyres on the rear of it, and you know, old school cool, you know, pretty fat. So these are only 235s on the 8-inch, and this one hasn't been scraping too bad, but the other one, as you can see, has been. So we can't continue like that, and I want bigger tyres, so it's only going to get worse with these rims. So now that I've had a bit of a look and a think, the rims have got to go. Now, speaking about the offset, if you have a look in here, and I hope this comes up in the film, there's plenty of room for the offset to go inboard. So I'll have a bit of a look around. I'm hoping that I can get 2 more of those American Racings. That might be the go, in 15x8 with an appropriate offset for the car. So anyway, that was just a couple little things I thought I'd cover off on that I didn't really go through in any great detail yesterday. And a couple of other things. The sway bar is virtually new. It hasn't, I don't think I've done 1000k since I fitted this thing. And, you know, it was just a bolt-in job, but I don't like the way it sort of just bolts in. So I'll do a bit of R&D, but I think I'll weld it in. I think I'll weld these brackets into place. Obviously they're still going to have the U-bolt, and same onto the chassis. So these are ones that came with the white line kit. And the thing looks pretty even, as you can, I don't know if you can see from that, but the angle of the stays are pretty even, so it's pretty well centralised and doing what it should do. But really, one bolt, that's not good enough. So we'll do a couple of fillet welds in here, and make that a whole lot stronger, and I think a whole lot better. Anyway, we'll see how that rolls. Cheers. Righto, so that's the differential out of the car. Couple of things I should have mentioned, well, I wanted to mention, is that obviously when you're going to take something like the Diff, or in the case of these modern cars, the IRS out of the back of them, which I've done. Again, I'm an amateur, I'm not a professional. If you listen to me and take any advice off me, on your head be it. It's not my fault. But it makes sense that the centre of gravity of the car or the vehicle is going to change, and it is going to move somewhat forward if you take out the diff or the IRS. So when I put this thing up on the hoist in the first place, you'll notice it's a fair way forward. Normally when I put my ute up or one of the other cars, it's pretty much aligned with the driver, but this time I moved it forward somewhat, and even though I know she's quite biased forward. So to compensate for that, chuck the wheels in the boot is a good idea. And another thing you can do is take the front wheels off the car. I haven't in this case. And now the job's going to cease for a little bit. I've got other stuff to do in the meantime, so I need to store it on the hoist. So the hoist is down at its lowest point, obviously for safety reasons. So now diff out, as I was saying before. Again, you can't see the screen when you film with this thing, but anyway, you can see how badly pitted these pins are for the rear of the leaf springs. Shackle pins, there you go, remember the name blue. So bin, I'll just toss them in the bin. The rest of it, it'll all clean up. I'll put it in the parts washer and let them soak for a week. And these are Super Pro pads I put in some time ago. These done quite a few thousand K, I have to say, and gee, no deformation at all. It's pretty impressive. You can see they live a rough life. So no, those things are pretty good, and that Super Pro on there as well. It's the first time I've ever used their product, and look, this just hasn't, from what I can see, just hasn't deformed at all. So I'm liking these more modern bushes, because at the end of the day, rubber is nice, but it perishes. So I'll replace those ones as well with probably Super Pro or something like that. And just for longevity, you know, the aim is don't do it twice. So I'll take the brakes off. The brake pads could go in the bin, they're about done. The discs are in very good nick. So now I'm going to have to clean it up, pull the axles out, pull the calipers off, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we'll get to it later. So, all right, all good. So there she be, the 9-inch diff carrier. So that's a 3-to-1 ratio. Just looking at it straight away, there's doesn't seem to be anything untoward here, as you'd expect. These things, this is the famous piece of the 9-inch diff, if you will, why they're so revered. I think they're a bit labour intensive myself. But this is a 3-to-1, it's not the factory one. I put this in when I converted the car to a 4-speed. And the ratios worked out very well for the 5-speed that I've got in the thing. Actually, it's I can't remember the exact ratios, but look, from memory, about 5,000 RPM, it's only doing about 50k, so it's got a nice short first gear, no problems. Good news, the oil looks good. Looks nice and clean. It's just those bloody bearings. So that doesn't look too untoward at all. That was Penrite oil I put in this many moons ago at the recommendation of the guy that sold me the diff, or we did the exchange from the 275 to the 3. Anyway, we'll get that sucked out of there and disposed of, and or maybe we won't today. I think we're out of play time, and this is a play thing. It's not the primary job of life. Anyway, that's that. We're getting somewhere slowly. Righto, it's been a long time between drinks, but life gets in the way, but we've moved forward a little bit. So got the diff prepared for a paint, and didn't go the lengths of soda blast or anything like that, but look, it'll come up fine with some kill rust or one of those equivalencies. What I have done is welded on the sway bar brackets, which were just sitting there. I noticed how the kit came, and there's the sun plug now fitted. Important, if you're going to do this, just note where that one is. I really should have gone here, but it's going to be fine, because where my finger is here, is where the main drive pinion sits, and it actually it's going to have a decent clearance, but yeah, I probably should have. I don't know if you can see that in there. It's a nice sunny day, but I don't know if the sun's going to get in there or not. I don't know. But anyway, look, 6 1 half dozen the other. It doesn't really matter because we're going to have clearance. So I got a bit lucky. If I had thought about it more, would have gone over here. So if you're going to do it, just give yourself some more clearance, because the cog is bigger than you think. But anyway, that's why it has this big housing. Yeah, stating the obvious blue. But anyway, there's the other bracket. So cleaned up good enough. We'll give that a hit of paint. Machine the disc, that's all done. I'll show you some of that later. But anyway, I've got to get this done. Yeah, g'day. Slow progress. Finally got some stuff done to the XC. Not much, but time's not my friend. What I have done is rebuilt a brake caliper. So there I am thinking, oh, this will be easy. Couple of new seals, she'll be right. And paint it up, blah, blah, blah. Until I pull the thing apart. So there is the one now refurbed. So this is the right-hand caliper. Go into that a bit later. It's come up quite nice. But these are some of the bits out of it. And as you can see, old cars, right? Look at that. Absolutely done. So onto old eBay. Got a couple of brake overhaul kits. Come with the pins, all the seals, blah, blah, blah. These are the old bits out of this one. And I tell you what, this thing was so bad. This car spent a lot of time in the tropics. These pins, which according to the book just knock out, these are your slide pins. Yeah, 6-ton press. Absolutely gone. But luckily, the bore was good, so I was able to rebuild it and sandblast it and paint it up. Speaking of which, since I did the last video, Super Cheap is your friend. Look at that. I can't believe that. This is $500 worth. Not even. I think it's 314 they sell these things for, and the vacuum cleaner was like $100. You beauty. And I sandblasted that brake caliper and a couple of other bits. I'm happy with this. This thing, I was going to spend a fortune on a sandblaster, and this thing, you know, for the home handyman or home restorer, you know, it's not a commercial use. It's doing the trick really well. I'm happy with that. So our Stanley compressor there has done the job. It works pretty hard when you're using a sandblaster. But so anyway, here's the other brake caliper here. I hope this is turning up. I can't see with the GoPro. It doesn't show you the screen. But anyway, I'll get this off now. We'll pull this thing apart. I've soaked this for the last month now, these pins in WD-40, and we'll see if that's going to come off better than the other one. The other one was just a nightmare. So we'll have a crack at it and then rip the axles out and start getting some work done to this diff, which I want to get back in the car so I can move the car in and out of the shed. Anyway, that'll do for now. Okay, caliper off. Time to get the thing apart. As I stated before, if you follow my directions, do it at your own risk. So I do things my way, but you know, I'm not a professional motor mechanic. It's not what I do. This is a home hobby. So the way I'm going to take the piston out, I'm probably going to get poo-pooed. That's okay. I use air pressure. So down at the local hardware, I found this. I've had a few of these over the years. You find a little air pistol kit's got these little rubber grommets on it. Just great for creating a nice seal into the hydraulic line fitting, and we'll just blow that out. I've only got one set of hands here, and I haven't worked out how to film this yet, so I'm just going to blow some air through there. Precautions: put some safety goggles on, and also put a rag over it. All right, so you don't get backfill. You will get oil wanting to come out of this, and in fact, it's a even better idea, really, to let the oil come out of it, like we are there. The oil's pretty clean in this thing. Get as much out as you possibly can. And also, I'll crack the bleeder just to get as much oil out of it as possible. You don't want to spray yourself with hide fluid, believe me. In my lifetime, I've had enough of that. You do not want to be doing that. And also, notice I'm wearing gloves. brake fluid. It's not nice stuff. You don't want to get it on your skin if you can avoid it. And these things are getting cheap to buy now for home, so you know, it's never been easier to be buying decent stuff at home to protect yourself and do work like this at home than ever. So spend the money, buy yourself some gloves. And anyway, I'll get all the oil out of here. I'll put the airline in, we'll blow this out and we'll see what she looks like inside. Get back soon. Yeah, okay, just a quick before and after. So here's the brake caliper, and here's that housing for the park brake assembly which sits there. So you can see quite starkly how effective that little plaster is. So I'm really stoked with that item. That's a great little bit of kit for the money, and it's not particularly slow. Have to say the compressor works pretty hard, but you know, my intent was to go three-phase. I've actually put three-phase into the shed to do it, but the problem is to buy a three-phase compressor, you are up for a lot of money to find one with a small tank, believe it or not. So, and I just don't have the real estate for a 200 litre tank here. So this is a great solution, and I'm really happy with the results. So anyway, I just thought I'd quickly show you that. Righto, take 3 or 4 of the brake. I buggered it up and deleted a couple of films. Don't put the piston in until you assemble the piston. Idiot. Anyway, so I'll do it again. So, assembling in order. They're calling this a 13. Adjuster nut. Yes, that's the adjuster nut. Now, the book says that's a thrust washer. Well, when I went to school, that wasn't a thrust washer. That was a bearing. Anyway, I'd call that a thrust washer. I think they've labelled it wrong. That washer, and then if you haven't got a set of these, get yourself a set of these or equivalents, because you're going to need them. Don't know what that's looking like, who knows. These aren't a bad set, they're reversible, which is handy. You can get 2 in 1 instead of having a big kit of them. Righto, so that's that. Now, set your piston up so that the lip, which has got to go into the dust seal bore, and that's what that is sitting down, excuse me, down lower than the piston itself. And again, I like to use lanolin as a lubricant for installation on rubber gaskets, even in break-ins, despite what the book says. It's only a book written by someone, remember that. Anyway, I'll fiddle this thing in, and then we'll push it down. Alright, wife's told me it's time for a cup of tea. So, very important, this seal here is a square seal. When it sits into the groove, it will tend to, when you put it on, it'll tend to want to roll. Make sure it's not twisted, that it's nice and neat, because that seal separates hydraulic oil from grease. Alright, this is the separator here of oil from the park brake mechanism. So you want to make sure that thing is absolutely straight, because it will roll when you try and put it in. 2 of them in a row, and you just got to be very, very careful when you're putting any sort of O-ring on, and that's a standard sort of practice. I'm sure you can find plenty of films on YouTube how to do that, or in maintenance manuals or whatever, but make sure that that's correct. So the washers are correct. This is going to have hide fluid in it, like I said, or brake fluid, and then this is grease to receive the 3 bearings. Grease your thrust bearing, right? So your other thrust bearing. Obviously wipe the excess off, and then we've just got to put the seal in the other side here, like so. Again, filming one hand, all that sort of stuff. My wife promises she's going to start filming soon. I'll get me a head camera or some bloody thing. But anyway, cup of tea time, and we'll bolt it together. There's no more real tips rest, so it's just follow the bouncing ball until we rig it. Okay, a couple of key bits and pieces from assembly. One, sometimes the books don't make logical sense, because if you're reading this you'd probably go A, B, C. It's not. It's A, B, C, or 31, 2 and 3. 31, make sure you've aligned the groove to the top of the housing. Don't forget your gasket. 32, I do it with the cam already installed to the housing. I found with the last one it's easier to fit the whole assembly. Right, do not forget to locate the little locating or key, you can call that. Just make sure the key's in, and it's set up so that where the spring goes into the top of it, that is vertical, and that the drive, or the, what do you want to call this, the cam I suppose, or locator, is at a 45-degree angle. Now this is for left hand. When I was doing the right hand one, this didn't marry up, it was the other way. So it's not in the book. Not in the pictures anyway. I found it somewhere in the script. Well, starts the ute up. Alright. So I'm just going to assemble this together now. I need 2 hands back and we'll get to the last piece. Oh, another point about that O-ring, again, that rectangle O-ring, that thing, I can't reinforce how critical that is, because if you get that wrong, you won't be able to bleed your brakes. You're going to leak fluid out this side. End of story. So you make sure you haven't rolled that O-ring, and I used a bit of Scotch-Brite to clean out the bore before I assembled it. Okay, some progress finally. So the guide pins, put some lube on those. They go small head inside to out, if you will. At the end of the day, the small head will go in and end up being flush, and these holes here are for split pins, and they will locate these in position. Then you've got the sleeves themselves, or guide sleeves, whatever you want to call them, go on there, and then the pad receiver, I'm calling it, will sit into that and then fit the other sleeve in and assemble it. New seals either end and some grease inside those. Just remember, you do one sleeve, receiver, another sleeve, and the cam worked fine. So end up using a screwdriver this time. This one here, I managed to just muscle it over. This one, just the spring's got a bit more tension on it, so I bolted it on and then just forced a big screwdriver down till this hook come all the way down up there, and then you can see where it scraped over the top. Anyway, work your own way out. Alright, this is all bolted down now. Just 2 things I noted. One, the whole assembly didn't just sit down on itself by hand, so I've had to torque it down ever so gently. I can't remember if the other one went in all the way, but it sat about 2 mil proud, and I thought, oh, it's probably the springs, I can't remember. But at the end of the day, I know if this is going to work, my assistant would come and hold the camera for me, I don't know. But when I move this as if the arm is moving the park brake, aka like that, you can see that the cam assembly is all working and the piston is wanting to move in, which is what the park brake should be doing. So correct weight. So it all lines up in accordance with what the book says. So now I'll torque it all up. It all seems to be functioning correctly. We've just got to get the cam on. Just word of warning, this will bite your fingers. So it's a bit of a fidgety thing to get this spring tension down. So that little hook there, where my thumb is, sits on the spring there, and you have to wind it down until the flats on the actuating arm line up with the cam. Home stretch. Alright, so split pins are in, and as you can see, the inner pad receiver, again that's what I'm calling it, slides on the two sleeves there. That's why they're cleaned metal. Right, no grease on them, obviously. It's just hard steel. And then you've got to put these springs on. Now, tip. When these are really hard steel, these spring steel, so this one here sits onto the hook and goes over the pin. Just to stop gouging the living buggery out of this, I just linished an angle, if you will, just so it slid over better when I install it on this one here. And this one here, look, they're a bit of a bugger to get in, so just take care. You don't want to puncture yourself or smack yourself like I may have. So, but anyway, we're up to the last bit. Springs, pads on. We can call that a day, and then we can move on to getting the axles out of the 9-inch and moving forward with it. So in the end, what I've done here, it's not pretty, but it was effective. So by hand, you can push this clip from the other way up so that the notch is engaged onto the sleeve. Now what you want to do is you want to get this piece into the groove on the slider, or the receiver as I called it before. So what I've ended up doing just then is using a screwdriver to peel it back, because let me tell you, there's a whole lot of tension on this. Alright, so now we should be able to, again, trying to film and do stuff with one hand is not ideal, but push it over, you feel that's going to engage now, and there we go, and that's engaged properly. So you can see that the pin is sitting into the groove, into the receiver, and that is a job done. This one's a lot easier to fit than this one. I should have mentioned that before. Look, that's how I've done it. Not the safest thing in the world. If you haven't got a vice, I think you're in a bit of trouble, and if you use a vice, don't forget soft jaws. There we have it. 2 XC rear calipers rebuilt. So new seals and new pistons and everything else just been cleaned up, refurb, new pads, good to go. So they can go onto the shelf now, and that's another good reason I like to use lanolin, because when I'm pre-assembling, because it's a good corrosion inhibitor, because these things could be sitting for a year yet before I get this thing back on the road, and that's the reality of it, and I reckon there's a lot of people out there doing exactly the same thing. So you know, I've got no concerns. It can sit in the shelf for a year and not be a bother. Only thing I'm going to touch up, the second one, just the paint didn't adhere as good, probably because the temperature has dropped here where we are, and this one come up really well, that one not so. So I'll just mask that off and give it a bit of a touch up with some caliper paint later. But on, let's get the axles out.